I just finished putting the laces in some new masks that I finished. They're all ready to ship out or be picked up. I have a couple of changes that I made, and this time I have a link to a pattern that you can print off if you would like. This is my updated video for making my masks. I've made one or two improvements on them, and so I'm doing the video again. This is a finished mask, and as you can see, it is designed to slip over your head, and then you pull this up, and then you tighten the laces around the back of your head and tie it. It's a very comfortable mask. I added a wire on the outside. I put it on the outside because I don't know how well these wires will hold up, and if they break, you can simply cut a couple of stitches, take it off, and it'll still work as a mask, or you can put a new one on. I'm a little hesitant to put it on the inside. I know all of the masks you buy, they are applied to the outside, so I decided to do that too. Anyway, so what we need is our pattern. We need to cut two of our outside fabric and two pieces for our casing here for the lace. And I've got a whole stack of these. Then we need to cut two pieces of a lining fabric, and I have found some really nice soft muslin. This is all cotton. Should feel very nice against your face. Two of them. Now, there's no right side or wrong side to muslin, so they're facing. And then, because the interfacing that I found after I dug very deep into my stash was quite thin, I decided to use 2 layers. And because it's so thin, I didn't want to struggle with lining the seams up on such a thin fabric that I said, oh, I'll just cut rectangles out. Okay, so what I have done is I have 4 layers of my interfacing on top of my lining, and I'll show you how to put that together. Okay, right now, let's look at the lining. I have these stacked up, and I'm doing them in groups. Okay, it doesn't matter which way you go. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to sew this right through 4 layers of fabric of the inner lining and the 2 layers of the lining that goes up against your face. Let's sew that. We're using an 1/8 of an inch seam. I'm using a narrow seam because I don't want to have to trim off an excess of a seam. Standard sewing would probably use 1/4 of an inch, or maybe even as much as 5/8. I know most dress patterns use 5/8. So we've sewn that. Now we can cut our interfacing. And all we do is just clip around. We're only going to trim that much. We're going to leave the rest of it on until we finish sewing it. Remove our pins. Now, open this up and use your fingers and press it like this. Okay? Then we're going to take 2 this way and 2 that way, and we're going to open this up. And we're going to press it again with our fingers. I don't think you need to pin this. I think you can probably sew it quite readily. Now, notice which side your seam allowance is on, and it's on this side. in this case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch it. Okay. As you can see, it's neatly top stitched. Now, let's get our other part done. I have a stack of these and I'm working on them as a group. I've already finished this many of them, but I have one here. So I've got it pinned and I'm just going to stitch it. And you notice since I was doing several of them at once, I put the little bias pieces, just pinned it to the inside. Now we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to roll it and we're going to reach inside and we're going to push that seam down. Now personally I like to push them to the left, but it's up to you. Doesn't matter. And we're going to top stitch it too. Just run a line of stitches as not too close, not even 1/16 of an inch from the edge. That way it'll hold this seam down and in place and it won't come up like that and cause problems. I finished that and I'm going to remove the little bias pieces while I'm putting the two pieces together. So we want right sides facing. Now, this is the way the mask is going to be. This is going to be the outside, right? And this is going to be the inside. And that's the way we want to put our mask together so that it is fitted. We're going to line the seams up. Make sure you get the nose to the nose and the rest of it. We're going to line the seams up as best we can and we're going to pin it. Now, run your hand down and smooth that down so that it fits neatly. Now, you're going to roll that over and you're going to notice something's happening. Your lining is a little bit larger than the rest of your fabric and you're going to keep pinning them. Roll it, lining, and pin. And you can see your lining fabric peeking out here and there. This one's not peeking out too much, but I think that's because this top fabric is a little more pliable. There we go. You want to catch all of those pieces of fabric. Okay, now I'm going to sew this seam. Okay, finished sewing. Now, when I'm finished with this, this is the way the mask should be. Outside, inside. Remove my pin so I don't mess my scissors up. Now we're going to trim the rest of that inner lining. And any excess of the muslin that's coming up. Notice that we left both ends open so we can turn it. And if you want to, you can also trim those down a little bit. Now you want to turn it, my outer fabric, my lining fabric, and just reach in it and turn it like you would turn a sock. Just like this. Okay, and with your fingers, you're going to press that seam again. You want to press the top fabric over, not the other way around. Otherwise, your lining will show when you turn it. And I'm just going to use a couple of pins to hold this so you can see what I'm doing. Just finger press it open. Moving the seam allowance towards the outside on both sides. It just makes it easier to fold this, and it just lays so neatly. Okay, pin it. Now I'm going to top stitch these. Our seam was 1/8 of an inch, so I need about 1/16 of an inch in, no farther than that. Otherwise, when you're wearing it, these seams will kind of poke up, I think is the word. They won't look good. Okay, now I'll top stitch this. I have finished the top stitching and it looks pretty good. I think probably one of my granddaughters will get this. The fabric is actually from one of my granddaughter's spring dresses, as they used to call them, that I made for them like at Easter time. Okay, now we retrieve our two little pieces of bias, and what we're going to do is we're going to make the little casing right here that holds our shoelace. Shoelaces turned out to be fantastic. You can still find them. They're not being hoarded by anybody at the moment. But the shoelaces, I think this is 54 inches. You might get by with a shorter one, but not an awfully lot shorter. It gives you plenty of room to go around your neck and then make a nice tie in the back that you can catch hold of and undo when you want to. Now, if you have elastic, you can actually thread elastic in and adjust it by tying it in behind your head so that you can take it on and off easily. But I'm out of elastic. Okay, what we're going to do is on the side where the chin is, we're just going to take it and make a little tiny fold there. And we're going to line that up with our 1/8 of an inch seam here so that it catches right where we're going to start sewing. We're going to sew that. Come on. Be sure to back stitch a couple of times. Okay, on the other side, we're going to trim that just a little bit. I think I suggested 4 inches by 1.5 inches pieces of binding, and that's about right. what you're going to do is you're going to turn that over like that. It'll make a neat edge. On the other side, you're going to do the same thing, except at the top, you're going to lay it over like this. Okay, and start sewing. Being sure to backstitch. And when you come to the bottom, you're just going to fold it up enough so that it comes in right here. Let me show you that up closely. On the top part, you're going to fold it over. On the bottom part, you're going to fold it up so that your stitching starts just about where that fold is, right there. Now, turn that over, and notice how nice that corner comes. Okay, now, very gently, you're going to give it about an eighth of an inch, and pin it. I do like to pin these. And I want to pin it so that when I stitch it, I don't come through this right here. I don't want to lay that one down. It makes it a little bit too bulky on the side of the face if you catch this. If you accidentally catch it, I wouldn't worry, but try to pin it so that it's going to be just slightly over. And here we go. Now, I'll stitch that one, and we'll look at it. Be sure to backstitch. Okay, here we are. Okay, see, I did not catch that back side. Okay, that's what I want it to look like. Okay, I'll do the other one, and then I'll show you how to thread it. Okay, here's the finished piece. This is the nose piece, and you can tell the nose piece because it's up. Okay, it looks nice. This is one I would be proud to give to family or friends. I think it looks fairly professional. Anyway, shoelaces. This is a 54 one. My local store didn't have but a couple of sizes, and this, I think it was labeled sports. It is not cotton. I think it must be nylon or something else. But it doesn't matter. It's a soft lace. Okay? The cotton ones would have been nicer because they would have felt better on the back of your neck, but we get what we can find. Okay, so all you need to do is just thread it. And you can feel it through there. You start at the top of one side. And the only trouble you might have is picking up your little 1/4 inch seam. And if you have trouble with that, you can put something in there to open it up so you can get it through. Like the head of one of my pins, maybe. Come on. There we go. Okay. Now, back through the other side. So this is going to go, this is the part that goes around your neck. And just kind of push it through. I'm sure we've all done this before. Well, maybe not. And there it is. Even those up. Now the wearer is going to have to even those up and keep them even. There we go. My mask is ready to put on. Now, if you want to put a nose piece on it, like this one, okay, I'll show you how to do that. I have one of my masks ready to put the nose piece on. I tried several different methods. I tried sewing them on by hand, and that was just too time consuming. So I figured out a way to sew them on with my machine. Let me show you. Number one, this is what I've been using. Some of them are a little messed up, but you can find enough in each one of these to make maybe 3 masks, maybe 4. This is the band that goes around kale when you buy it by the bunch. You might find it someplace else, but it's a fairly heavy-duty wire, much heavier than the bread ties that some people have been using. I also found some around electrical stuff. Anywhere you can find nice, heavy wire that holds things together. I have some black stuff here that came from some sort of electrical. I don't even remember. But I had saved them for using in the garden, but I'm going to use them here instead. What you need to do is to cut them into 4-inch lengths. Now, don't use your best scissors to do this. Use a pair of shears that you might use in the kitchen or something else, but don't use your best scissors to cut this wire. It will ruin your scissors. There'll be a nick and they won't cut well. Okay, what we need to do first is find our midpoint. And I just simply do this by lining it up. I take a pin and I poke it like that. Okay. Now, on the mask, what I did was I made sure it was sitting correctly and I pinned it so that it won't buckle on me. Okay. Now, what I want to do is to line that midpoint up with the seam here. And I want to line the ends up about 1/4 inch down from the top. There's a half, we want it about 1/4. If you put it too high, it'll get in the way. If you put it too low, it won't really work right. So what I'm doing is just very carefully, I'm not pinning through that plastic, I'm just pinning enough to hold it in place. Then I'm going to line up the other side about 1/4 inch, about like that, if you can see that. Mine might be a little, well, that's the end. I want the end at about 1/4 inch. Okay, and I'm going to pin it. And there we go, and hold it. Then I'm going to take the middle of it and just kind of let it go where it wants to go. Now, there we go. It's going to sit about right there. And it's going to be more than 1/4 inch down. And I'm going to pin it. Now, I have my machine set right now to form a stitch that's maybe what I've been sewing with, maybe a little bit longer. This machine only does a straight stitch, and I'm too lazy to pull out my other machine, which is tucked away, that does a zigzag. But what I need to do is to tack the ends so they'll stay in place and so it won't roll up. So what I'm doing is I'm just simply adjusting my machine length so that it'll stitch just across that wire well, but not go all the way across the I want it to stitch the plastic but not the wire, I think is what I'm trying to say. Okay, and I'm going to Start it there. And then I'm going to back it. I need it a little bit longer. And I'm going to tack it 3 or 4 times. Then I'm going to change it to the biggest stitch I got, because I don't want to perf this plastic so that it, like a postage stamp, rips. And then I'm going to sew right down beside that wire. Very carefully. I'm watching my pins. I could take them out, but I want to make sure this tie stays in place. And I don't want to hit the wire. I just want to hit that plastic right beside it. And when I get to the other edge, I'm going to readjust my machine to about where it was. And I'm going to adjust it so it hits the plastic and not the wire. And tack it. Now, that's a lot easier than sewing it on by hand. Now, when you store these, you don't want to fold this plastic. You don't want to fold the wire any more than absolutely necessary. And now it's ready to string the laces on it. If you like my video, press the little like button. And if you like my sewing and knitting and the other things that I'm doing, press the subscribe. Hopefully I can get a few more videos out. I have some that we're intending to do on gardening, but we're working at it. There's a lot going on. Thank you very much.